like I guess a psychology trope to where you shouldn't call your opponent old because then you lose to
Right.
him or you degrade him or whatever. But I think everything in context can work. And in this instance, they made it very clear with the finish that Punk gassed out and he lost.
Yeah.
But really, that just sets up Punk to come back and say, "Oh, can I do it again?" And that
Right.
sets up a story. So, welcome to the Kayfabe Files. I'm Mr. Marvelous, and today it's WrestleMania review with Big Michael Elgin. So we opened night 2 with Brock Lesnar and Obafemi, and this is probably one of my favorite matches, if not my favorite match. I think this is pretty kick-ass. It was really solid business. Even when they opened up with the lockup and they just kind of stalemated, that was a
Yep.
great visual. And we were talking just previously about the equity that some of these wrestlers have and the stuff that they do. And what stood out to me was Obafemi when he got up from the F5, the crowd just rose up and
Hmm.
and he didn't just no sell it, like he sold it, like he felt it, but he just got up and just
Yeah.
I just thought that was a great moment. And then he won, which gets him over and runs along with the theme of getting new people and that stuff. The only one thing I'll say, he when he won, he played it more like he was in shock or surprised. I'd like to see him more confident, but of
Yes.
course, that could be a producer thing. Maybe they told him to do that. I don't
Right.
know, but that's just me thinking. But I mean, overall, like the whole crowd is chanting "Oba, Oba, Oba," and it wasn't too long, 4 minutes and 45 seconds. I don't know. Do you have anything to add?
I mean, there's a lot to pack into this. One,
Mhm.
I at some points thought it was going to be a straight squash for Oba. I wouldn't have been mad had it been a squash like that.
Mhm.
But before any of that, obviously the build itself was tremendous. And I also think because of the old adage of wrestling, that gave people the fear that Brock was going to beat Oba. Because typically, when it comes to pro wrestling, especially when it's a baby face getting up on the heel, that usually means that the heel is going to win at the big match, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I thought the build was perfectly because I believe it led people who know that old adage of whoever's getting up on the TVs leading to the big show is usually going to lose at the big show, right? So I thought the build was perfect. I think Brock made Oba look great in the build. Number two, this is why opinions suck. Okay? Why did Brock Lesnar beat the streak? Why did Brock Lesnar beat Kofi so quick for the world title? Why did Brock Lesnar squash John Cena during his retirement? For this moment is exactly why Brock had all those accomplishments. People are gonna be like, but Brock didn't need those things. He didn't. But it added to the lore of Brock Lesnar, the pro wrestler. It added to when Paul Heyman talks about Rock Wrestler. He was the 1 in 21 that beat the streak. He destroyed John Cena. He destroyed Kofi after Kofi Mania. He did all these things. So when somebody like Obafemi comes around and beats Brock Lesnar in 4 minutes and whatever seconds, it's like, holy shit. We now have this new world beater in our company. So everybody's so wants that instant gratification. Oh, Brock shouldn't have beat the streak. Oh, Brock shouldn't have beat Kofi so quick. Oh, Brock shouldn't have beat John Cena so quick. Yes, he should, because that just made Obafemi an absolute fucking star.
And it's kind of like when I evaluate things, I've kind of shifted a bit about how I uh like digest it, I guess, because like all those things, the fans are definitely upset that Brock beat Undertaker, that
Yeah.
Brock squashed John Cena, but I think it's more like that's just the modern version of a heat, in the sense
Yes.
that the fans don't get mad at the heel, they get mad at the booker. And it just kind of is what it is. I don't know, the fans. I wish we could get our focus back on the characters, like
But
a
you
TV
can't
show.
because but everybody thinks they know better.
Yeah.
That's the problem with opinions. And again, I hate to sound like I'm ripping on wrestling fans. I don't mean to. What I'm ripping on is the wrestling fans that somehow feel that they are going to be better bookers or better performers than people who have dedicated their life to it, and they voice it as if their opinion is fact. And then the fact that some of these fans are becoming journalists or writers and then asking people to pay for their opinions, which are 95% of the time incorrect. Like,
And um, like it's I think one point where I always kind of check myself when I look at these things because I don't know the information around what's happening, and neither do the
right,
fans. The fans don't know what direction they're going. They don't know
right.
what they're setting up. You can guess, but I think for the most part, when the fans critique these things, they don't look at that at all, and they just look
No,
at
and
in
that's the problem. Like,
isolation.
and I'm at the mind frame. And again, this is just how my brain works when it comes to wrestling. Maybe it's because that's all I've ever really put my mind to. Maybe it's because I've had so many years in. Maybe because there's been so much packed into those years as well. Like when I see something, my first thought is, well, where could they build off this? Right? Because I'm thinking, does this work? Because often you don't know what works until months later because often you're doing something now to benefit later, right? And that's good wrestling. Like you're setting yourself up for the future. I mean, we hear all the stories of how the night after WrestleMania, or even going into WrestleMania, Vince McMahon used to have the main events and the big matches of the next year's WrestleMania already in his mind before he booked the finishes to WrestleMania. Because wrestling is very unique in the fact that it's 365 days a year, there's wrestling happening. 52 weeks a year, there's live television. Every month there's live pay-per-view. There's no off season. There's no break, right? It's not like I can watch 12 episodes of Raw and then they leave me on a cliffhanger and I got to wait till fall to see the next 12 episodes of Raw. It's happening every Monday, no matter what's happening in the world, no matter what's going on in life. It's happening consistently. So you are not always booking for that moment. There's always, okay, what's next? Because there's always going to be a next. There's
Mm.
always the next week. There's always the next pay per view. There's always the next year. There's always a next talent.
And I think that was specifically night one.
Yes, 100%. And that's what people aren't understanding. It's like, okay, maybe it wasn't the greatest WrestleMania, but the what we have to look at is what is this building to give us great moments throughout the next year? Because what if it was two nights of the best wrestling you ever saw, and then there's nothing lined up for the next year? So now you're just
Mm.
waiting for WrestleMania next year,
Yeah.
right? What's
Yeah.
going to happen at Backlash? So we know Roman Reigns and fought too. Now we're looking forward to that, right?
Mhm.
Now, what's a possibility in our mind for SummerSlam? Cody and Punk. So now we're looking forward to that. So now we're talking, we're
We're
not even
still
into May.
invested.
Yeah, we're invested in something that Punk had to lose at Mania to then cut that promo for Cody to interrupt him, for him to switch his view to the title that Cody has, not the title that he just lost. So it's
Mhm.
like all these things have to happen to give us the future that we're building towards. And sometimes, I mean, not most of the time, people as a whole, not just wrestling fans, want instant gratification. And pro wrestling does not give you instant gratification. I mean, I have a bunch of TV shows I watch with my wife, and every time a show ends on a cliffhanger, she goes, "Oh man, we gotta wait till next week." And I'm going, "Hell yeah, we gotta wait till next week." Because now I'm excited, right? Now I'm thinking about it all week, and that's what I like my wrestling to do. I want my wrestling. I mean, Bill Watts notoriously was great at ending with heat because he knew he had an hour of TV every week or 90 minutes of TV every week. I have to get people to tune in next week because it's a weekly thing. There's no off season for wrestling.
Mhm.
There's an off season for literally everything else we watch or consume in our life. Sports, everything has an off season, right? TV, they all have off seasons.
Mhm.
Some of them have a year between when the
Mhm.
show comes out. Wrestling doesn't have that, so they got to keep it entertaining and viewers coming back every single week, every single year. And wrestling, I mean, Raw has been on the air for what?
20
Almost
years,
30 years?
30 years. Yeah.
More than that. Started what, 93 was the first Raw?
Yeah.
Right? So, like, Jesus, we're 33 years into this debacle. And it happens every Monday. I mean, when was Raw ever not happen on a Monday? I
I
don't think there's ever been a
I
Monday
think
that
they
hasn't had a
have that
Raw since it
record
debuted.
that consecutive Mondays they've run. Like
Yeah.
even COVID, they ran without people.
Yep. So you know what I mean? So it's like that's what people don't understand is some shows need to be a building block for the next show. And I think that's one of the reasons why they made WrestleMania 2 nights was because traditionally WrestleMania has kind of been the blow off, and they've realized for business they kind of have to also plant some seeds for the future when it comes to WrestleMania.
Mhm.
But back to that opening match. I thought it was the best way to open. Obviously, Brock Lesnar is, he's UFC World Heavyweight Champion. He's a very notable name and physique that the world knows. Him opening on that free, doing the honors to somebody who's going to be a huge star moving. Because I don't even think Oba's what 28.
Sounds right. I actually don't know, but I
I
know
think I think he's late
he's a former
20.
college athlete, so I
Yeah,
wouldn't
so he at
surprise me if
least
that's what it
has
is.
they at least have another 5 years with him at least, and that's at a minimum of being a
Mm.
top star. And another note, which doesn't really happen in Brock Lesnar matches, he kind of had to do things outside of Brock Lesnar. Because, for instance, Oba reached through the ropes to grab him and he hot shot him on the rope. That's not something Brock Lesnar usually does.
Mm.
Because he usually just out powers
He
his opponents to get into heat.
he fought from underneath, which it's going to be his last match, so
Yeah.
he's being put out of his misery, basically, right?
And any time that Brock Lesnar has used the post or stairs is usually when he's in firm control, but he used the post and the stairs to get the advantage on Oba in this match,
Yeah.
which also put more emphasis on how strong and how much of a credible opponent Oba was. And I think that's something that people might overlook. Because if you look at Brock Lesnar, he's so used to just dominating with power, not dominating with being a heel and using heel tactics to get up. And this was probably the first time in his career he ever did that,
Mhm.
which adds
And
so
it
much
meant
more to
something.
Oba. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is incredible. I remember, you know, when I went to TNA, when they were telling me, you're a heel, you got to cheat. I go, but I'm a heel coming off my runs in Ring of Honor in New Japan, which people who are going to watch me are watching me knowing my back history. Because at the time I went to TNA was not the popular choice. I only went there to spend more time with my son. I didn't want to leave Japan. So it's like I told him, I said straight up, I go, wouldn't it mean more if I cheat in a big match against a big credible opponent and then the commentary says, I don't think I've ever seen Michael Hogan do this type of stuff. I was thinking of the future, right? I was thinking of how do I give my value, which is why TNA brought me in, because at the time of their rebuild, I was easily the most important name they signed during that time, maybe outside, but John Morrison was already there and he was on his way out. You know what I mean? Like nobody was leaving New Japan to go to TNA at the time. I did for my son, but it also gave me a different profile as anybody in that company. So I thought, well, if I just wrestle how people are used to me wrestling, but then I get in a situation where I have to cheat to win, that means more because we're not used to seeing me cheat to win. And again, that's I'm not saying I'm on par with Brock Lesnar because he's like 6 inches taller than me and gigantic, but at the same time, my presence I tried to make my presence feel like that monster that could dominate people, and I was successful at it. So it's like I get even more. those little things in this match of how important it was for Brock putting over Oba and what we expect to see from Oba in the future.
So the next match, I realized just before we went on that I actually didn't watch this match. I watched it out of order. The ladder match. It was Penta won or he was retained the Intercontinental Championship. I'm assuming it was basically a plunder match, but I don't
It
know
was
how
really,
much you
yeah,
have at.
but see, I thought this was a tremendous ladder match because they all picked their spots, and you could see from the highlights on Raw, all their spots were meant for this, right? Like they did the cutter off the ladder, they did the destroyer on the ladder, and they did, Rey Mysterio doing the getting popped up by Penta into the, I forget what he calls it, the seated deal. Why can't I think of what Ray, the West Coast pop on Rusev through the ladder? So like they put all the spots in the right place. The only problem I had there was I believe that it was a moonsault when the ladder got tipped. Javon went into a dive, and then JD McDonough did like a moonsault. I'm assuming because it didn't get caught on camera, and that kind of ticked me off because I think JD's a really good wrestler.
Yeah.
And that was like it was a spot for Javon and him, but they only caught the Javon, and when they showed the replay, they only showed the dive from Javon off the ladder. But clearly, JD kind of landed on the rope and did a moonsault to whoever was in the ring. But outside of that little camera work, I thought that everybody was where they needed to be. All the spots were done perfectly for the highlights following WrestleMania. And again, for that match to be on the free hour, I mean, it's a perfect match. They did all the crazy spots. They had all different kinds of characters. They got Javon over, and he's new. He's 21 years old. They're looking at him for the future. Penta and Ray are great, but also merchandise through the roof with their masks. You know what I mean? They're trying to build Rusev as a big contender. I thought great people in the match, heck of a ladder match, and perfect spot on the card, especially on that free. Because as a young wrestling fan, or even somebody who doesn't watch wrestling, I felt that that was an exciting match that people would go, "Oh my god, this is kind of crazy." So great match, right winner, and I think that this was right place, good time. There was no time where it was like they were just doing nonsense to fill time. Everything was important. Everything was capitalized on. Great ladder match and great position on the card.
And the highlights definitely were all over Instagram and Twitter and all that stuff.
Yeah,
So for the purposes of making that, and I know the like all the people in the match are getting popular, and they definitely built on top of that. So that was
yeah,
good too. The next match was Trick Williams and Sami Zayn for the United States Championship. Um, what do we got here? 7 minutes. I saw you wrote some stuff on Facebook, so you want to start it off?
yeah. This goes back, and I don't want to make this sound like I think Trick Williams is a shitty wrestler. He's not. But he's not as experienced as the guys we're used to getting a following, especially when it comes to the internet, right? He's not as skilled as even a Sami Zayn. He doesn't have as much depth in his wrestling knowledge or ability.
Well, I mean, that's just a fact. Like
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I
I'm
don't know.
qualifying it for people that are going to say, look at
Yeah,
Michael
yeah.
Elgin shitting on Trick Williams. Because
But I
I'm not.
mean, when did he start? 21? 2021?
Maybe. Yeah. He did
Yeah.
a couple little things on the East Coast with CZW and then went right to WWE. But regardless of that, he's an absolute effing star. What a star. Like, God, he's going to be, if not next year, the year after, he's main event of WrestleMania.
Mhm.
Super over with the crowd. His song, you would think that Whoop That Trick was actual on the song, but the song's just instrumental, and the crowd does it.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
that's incredible. You would think that Whoop That Trick is part of the song. That's lyrics on the song, and it's not. His song is strictly instrumental. So one, what a star! Sami Zayn was absolutely the best opponent because he has so much equity in his career outside of WWE and then inside of WWE as well. He was absolutely the perfect opponent. And why I say that was people bitching, oh, um, Carmelo Hayes should have been in that match. No, he shouldn't have been because Carmelo Hayes was not going to have the match that Trick Williams needed to get over. Sami Zayn was the only person that was going to have the match that Trick Williams needed to win that U.S. title and to get over because Sami Zayn knows how to do all the things he did in that match to get the pop at the right time, right? There's an old adage, you want the crowd at the peak for the finish. And to be able to do that, especially when you are doing stuff pre-planned, which when WrestleMania, it's no secret that they get a ring, they put it in the ballroom of the hotel that all the wrestlers stay at, and the agents and the wrestlers meet throughout the week to go over their stuff for WrestleMania because it's the biggest show of the year. You needed Sami Zayn in that position. You needed to make a star, which you've now made Trick Williams. So now give me Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes. Now give me Trick Williams and Ilya. Because Trick is an absolute superstar. So anybody he works with, if the match is done correctly, that superstardom is going to rub off on his opponents. So Trick Williams was the right choice for this match, and Sami Zayn was the right opponent for this match. And I thought this match was perfect. I don't think it needed to be longer because the business of this match was to get Trick Williams to be an absolute star following WrestleMania, and he is. So to me, you didn't need anything more in this match time wise. You didn't need to make it a 3-way. You didn't need to make it a 4-way. It's as it stands was the perfect match for what they wanted to accomplish, which was making Trick Williams an absolute superstar moving forward.
And I think, and we talked a bit about this, but the match time was short, but like it didn't feel short. Like
No,
it was just short in the sense of like it was short, but again, in terms of the business, they checked off everything they needed to check
they
off, and
maximized their minutes.
for sure.
And that's what
And
wrestling is. That's what anything is. That's if you're a second string point guard. When you get in the game, you maximize your minutes. You make the plays. You make sure you hit the open man. You make sure that you're in control of the ball. And as long as you do that and maximize your minutes, then you're a valuable part of the team, even though you're not the starter. And they maximized their minutes. And Sami Zayn was not the starter in this situation. He was the one that was there to do the favors to make sure that Trick has a great future. And who better to do that than somebody who has, I think he might have started a year before me. So he's at, 24 years
mm,
in, maybe 25. So it's
yeah.
like he's the right guy to go into that. And he knows the facial expressions. He knows what moves go where. He knows his abilities. He knows, like, the finish was absolutely a huge pop because of where it came out of, right? It's just, it was perfect. I thought the match was perfect.
Mhm. Fully agree. The next match was Dominic Mysterio and Finn Balor, the Demon Finn Balor. Um, this was fun. I don't have too much. It was just
Yeah.
solid.
Yeah.
Dominic's stuff over the past year and a half has been great. They've done a great
Oh,
job
yeah.
with him.
It's funny. He came out and my wife goes, "I hate this guy," right?
Exactly.
And I go, "Yeah, that's the point." You know what I mean? Like that's what I want my wrestling fans to be because she never knew. I mean, I'm not saying she didn't know wrestling existed or know what it was, but she didn't watch it or really hear somebody talk about it the way I talk about it. So she's kind of like my barometer of what's good or not, right? Because she watches that and goes, "Man, I hate Dominic Mysterio." I'm like, "Yes, you're supposed to," and that's why I love him because he's so easy to hate and he's so good at his job. Like, yeah, Dom's great. Balor's I think is fantastic. I'm with them. I don't like necessarily the announcement of that it's going to be the demon, but from a business point of view, I do, because for anybody who's maybe new to the bandwagon of wrestling or new to this and they see Finn Balor as the demon, that's t-shirts, that's masks, that's merchandise, which I know Finn Balor's got to love because he sees some of that too, right? So like the match itself was what it needed to be, the right winner. You're not gonna have him bring out the demon and lose. Dom's a
But
great heel.
the
Him losing doesn't hurt him.
one thing I was interested about coming into this is that it was the demon, and Dominic's not exactly the most physically imposing person.
Right.
And I felt like they protected Finn Balor being the demon and Dominic getting heat on him. I felt
Yes.
like that
Yeah.
was very well done too.
Yeah. As I said, the match itself was everything it needed to be. Um, as a wrestling, fan that's watched some of every era going as far back as like stuff from France in the 40s. I like when it's just a out of nowhere demon that he had to call on it and it's kind of a surprise. But I understand the business aspect of announcing it beforehand and the difference that's supposed to represent the character of the demon, that he's, digging in a little bit deeper to an area he doesn't always have to dig into. I get all that. But with this and with the business at hand, I think this was again a great thing to put on Mania. Good match. Proper use of everything. Again, the finish with the table, which was similar to um, McIntyre and Fatu on night one. But those are just little critiques, and I get that, the most devastating thing that they could have done in that was the stomp through a table, sure. But as a whole, I think again, a great piece of business.
And I don't think Dominic loses anything.
No, absolutely not.
So,
He's the
which is
type of
also
heel
good.
character that doesn't hurt. And to
Yeah.
me, I feel like they're gonna give Balor a run this year, probably in the main event scene. So I'm guessing he's going to have to be the demon in a title match at some point.
Mhm.
And that's why they're kind of reintroducing that as a different evolution of the character. So if he gets in a feud with a world champion, he can call on that demon character to go into the big pay-per-view match somewhere.
So the next match was Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill. This is all just really solid. Not too long. It was at 10 minutes and 8 seconds. Rhea Ripley did a good job fighting from underneath, which she doesn't normally do because she's usually the bigger girl.
Yeah.
But it was all good stuff, and she ended up going over, and that's great. We talked a bit about the distraction and how it was similar, so we don't
Hmm.
have to rehash that. But I mean, it again, it was just more of the same from the two nights of just solid wrestlers doing solid wrestling, good business, and short, but wasn't anything wrong with that.
No.
And
I think
and
I actually think this match needed to be short because I mean it proved to be I believe in both companies that was Jade's best performance.
mhm, I would agree with
So,
that.
being longer I don't think would have been beneficial to the circumstances.
Mhm,
I think Jade looked great. I think the smooth transition into that finish was beautiful. It looked awesome, you
mhm.
know. Um it's nice to get Mishin and BFAB on the pay per view. Like we said, it was kind of similar to the night one. I would have liked had commentary said, maybe brought in, Rhea and Jade, or Rhea specifically must have had her eyes on the match last night, and knew that Jade had backup and was prepared for that or something, just to show why one, I think interference should mostly lead to that interference helping somebody win. Um, but getting them on the show as they're part of the Jade package now is important as well. So I understand why they did it. It's good to get them on the card. Mission's worked her butt off. I remember her in Ring of Honor when I was there. Obviously, she had a long run in TNA, and this is her second stint in WWE. Um, but yeah, I think Rhea did great. I think this was Jade's by far her best performance. Um, Great women's match. Another great, feather in the cap of Rhea for her dominance in the women's division. And yeah, good stuff. I thought. Oh, I liked the match. It was enjoyable. I was into it. I bid on things. As I said, that transition into the finish looked flawless. Jade going for her move and her dropping right into it. It looked beautiful. It was smooth. It's something that I'm like, damn, that looked really good. Because some things can envisioning it or the concept of it sounds great, but then it doesn't really come off as good as you would hope. But that was as smooth as silk, man. That was a beautiful
Yeah,
finish. I really
yeah, for
like that
sure.
match a lot.
Yeah. So the next was a segment with Danhausen. I don't know if it wasn't a match, but I don't know if you want to add any thoughts on it.
I
I
loved it.
enjoyed
I
it.
thought
I
it
don't
was
know.
great. Yeah, it was a
Yeah, that was
breakup
great.
from the wrestling, the little comedy aspect. Everybody played their role perfectly. I loved it, and great for Downhausen. Like I remember him before he got that gimmick and just trying to be a solid wrestler. He trained with one of my best friends, Truth Martini, down in Detroit, and I saw the beginnings of his career. Always respectful, always asking for advice, always working hard, always willing to travel and get experience and seeing what's happened. Because on a typical I like what WWE's doing with Danhausen because for me, I'm not the biggest fan of Danhausen the wrestler. Not saying he's not a good wrestler, but I like a little bit more believability than the character Danhausen offers in a wrestling match. But everything he's done since coming to WWE, I love. I absolutely love it. The you are cursed stuff and then stuff happening to
And
people.
the fans are
Yeah,
open to it.
yeah, and I
They're
really
getting with
enjoy
it.
it. Like I like that aspect of the character. I'm just happy what they're doing with the character, and I'm glad they gave him a WrestleMania moment because he's selling a lot of
Mhm.
merch and he's very popular. And again, that's not a knock on Danhausen. When I watch wrestling, that's not my flavor of wrestling. But his character work in the situation he's been in since coming to WWE, I've absolutely adored everything he's done.
But I mean, yeah, there's nothing wrong with not wrestling if you don't need to wrestle.
Right, right. Agreed. Agreed. I
So,
think they're utilizing him the best that they could, and he's on TV weekly, and he's getting more and more over, and I love it.
mhm. So then we got the main event, Roman Reigns and CM Punk, 33 minutes and 56 seconds. Just this was pretty kick ass. I enjoyed
Yeah.
it. They what do I got down here? There was some good stuff. They did. They went to the outside. Roman did the one tribal chief thing, and then Punk took it back. It's just good crowd work there.
Hmm.
Roman, and then we talked a bit about this. Roman does the go to sleep, and Punk does the Superman punch. Which okay, it like in isolation it works. I think
Right.
in consuming as a whole product, WrestleMania, I'm like it's the same. It's more similarities, but
Yeah.
whatever. Um, there was one point when Punk threw the tape at Roman, which distracted the ref. I felt like they could have come up with a little bit more creativity there, just to
I
get.
agree.
I don't know, but I'm nitpicking because it was like he threw the tape, the ref picks it up for some reason, and then walks all the way over there so Punk could low blow him. I don't know. It's fine, but I just feel like
Yeah.
they could have
I
put more thought into
ideally
that.
you could have probably done something different, only because in that typical fashion, a referee would just kind of kick it out of the way and keep his focus on the action. Like if that happened in any other match,
Ideally,
right? I mean, but if you've ever
like even
seen it in
think
any
if it
match,
was MMA or something.
right? So like
Um,
I agree with you there, but I understand because it was meant to be just a little distraction
yeah,
from who was a baby face doing something that's not baby facish. So I understand why they did it, but I think if they thought outside the box a little bit longer on that spot specifically, they might have come up with something a little bit more appealing to people like me and you that recognize it's a little bit off for the referee to walk away from the action just for some wrist tape that really isn't going to interfere in the match, and there's nothing wrong with just kicking it out, right?
There
But again,
was,
that, like you said, is nitpicking to the finest nitpicking, and the only reason we're even nitpicking that spot was because the match was so good as a whole,
yeah, that's true.
right? I mean, so that sticks out because it didn't quite fit in the fact that that match was so good that that spot felt a little off.
There was a bit of some of a part that was interesting in the build because there was a promo that they both did where Roman Reigns called CM Punk old, and I know the
Right.
internet got in a bit of a tizzy about it. But when I saw it, like I guess a psychology trope to where you shouldn't call your opponent old because then you lose to
Right.
him or you degrade him or whatever. But I think everything in context can work, and in this instance they made it very clear with the finish that Punk gassed out and he lost.
Yeah.
But really, that just sets up Punk to come back and say, "Oh, can I do it again?" And that
Right.
sets up a story. So, um, I mean, that was the finish. Roman won. I think I heard something about Punk taking time off, but whatever. But overall, they everything was tight. Everything was good. It's really strong characters, good crowd work, and just
The
really
only
kick
thing I
ass.
will say is there was one moment when like Roman threw a jumping knee, which isn't in his repertoire, and it did not look very good because it did not make very much impact. Um, and that's one of those circumstances where I feel, as somebody who's been in those situations, where they just threw something in there to throw something in there rather than really focusing on the importance of that. Because, like I said, when a match is so good and you're watching from the eyes that you know you're going to discuss it after, you have to take note of everything. And the fact that the two things we take note of are, you bringing up the tape spot and me bringing up this one knee spot is because other than those two, to me, very minor things, everything was so spot on that they stand out more to me because it's like, man, the match was great, but just these two little things would have even took it to a different atmosphere, a different stratosphere if we just did something different in those two instances.
Mhm. Yeah, so that was WrestleMania. Um, we I think overall, just we put it over, but like it was great. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I
I'm
did too,
interested to
very
see where
much
they go
so.
from here. Um, Nobody got hurt. That was
I
good.
think a big part of it too is the excitement of clearly what they're doing for the future. They are trying to make new stars. They are focusing on people who haven't been focused on before very clearly. And that is exciting of as a wrestling fan and a wrestler together because I like seeing the influx of new talent that one loves it and you can see that they love it through whatever they're doing on TV because our business is a business that's built on stars, and to build it on stars you have to constantly create stars. And truthfully, over the last few years I don't feel that there's been many stars created, you know. Even
Mhm.
when you look at like a Penta, he's no spring chicken. I'm not saying he's old, but he's had a long career. You know what I mean? Like I remember watching stuff from him in 2010, 11, and 12 in Mexico and Japan. And I was like, man, this guy's really good. And then Lucha Underground. And then obviously AEW. And then TNA before AEW. So it's like he had something to latch on to. But when it comes to like Trick Williams and Obafemi and even Jacob Fatu, he was great in what he did on the Indies, but he was never in the biggest promotion. Yeah, he did MLW and he did great in MLW. LA Knight, has been around a while, but he's never really hit that main event scene for a long period of time. He's had main event matches, but I think now they see the quality that he puts out and how the crowd reacts. And this year, I think we're going to see him in a lot bigger position. So even just the excitement level of what's coming in the future following WrestleMania makes WrestleMania that much more important to me as a wrestler and wrestling fan, seeing that, okay, we're trying to set up the future now. And that's just as important as focusing on the present. Because, like we said, 52 weeks a year, there's going to be Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. Every month, there's going to be a PLE. You need to have constant stars for not only for when people retire, but when people get hurt. Right? I mean, we just
Mhm.
saw it. Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, who were probably going to be two significant parts of WrestleMania, were not available due to injury. So we had to create, when you have a long list of people that you can count on, those situations don't hurt the product as much because it doesn't seem as much of a stretch to put other people who are over in those positions rather than getting somebody over to get into a position with that quick of turnaround.
And I mean, too, I think it's first world problems when you sell 50,000 tickets back to back nights and you're
Yeah,
putting over the future.
right.
So, um, yeah, I don't have anything else. I think we've riffed quite a bit. Maybe maybe we'll get some responses and see see if we can respond to that. But
Yeah, because obviously you can break down the match, like, but that would be a 6 hour show because I mean, I know we've talked about stuff. It takes a very long time for me to actually break down every moment of a match because I think of everything in such detail. But this was just for overall what we thought of the matches, anything that really stood out in the matches, good or bad. And really, there wasn't things bad that stuck out in the matches.
mhm,
Like we said, some of it, there's a couple matches that maybe could have used a couple extra minutes. The Rollins Gunther match, in my opinion, could have used an extra 10 to 15. But outside of that, I believe it was a really good show. Would it be nice if there's not as many ads? Sure. Would it be nice if we got a little bit more time wrestling? Sure. But I don't think the matches necessarily needed. Like if we were going to cut down on ad time, I would have rather them put another match on the card than give some of the matches that they had more time, except for Gunther and Rollins,
yeah,
right? So, like, I don't think there's anything bad with that. And I think wrestling fans are so accustomed to, and this isn't a knock on AEW, because I'm not that person. I think AEW is great, but their pay per views are hard to watch in one sitting because you're seeing 9 20-minute matches when some of them just needed to be shorter because with that 20 minutes you're seeing some repetitive stuff. You're maybe not seeing the detail work that you're seeing elsewhere, and that's not a bad thing, and that's not saying the AEW product is bad. It's just I know when I've watched an AEW product, I usually have to watch it in 2 or 3 sittings just because it's a lot to take in
mhm,
because everything is so long and everybody's trying to have their match of their life, which I understand. I'm a wrestler. I remember being on cards and going, fuck this. I'm going to go out there and blow people away. And then coming back and the promoter's going, that might have been the best third match I've ever seen in history of a wrestling show. Like I've been there and I've done it and I understand. But I also try to understand as a viewer, like it's a lot. It's a lot. And yes, there could have been, less ad time. Yes, there could have been less commercials, maybe an extra match or two. But as a whole, in my opinion, the only match that could have benefited from actually more time would have been Gunther and Rollins.
yeah,
And uh I don't think like we covered, I don't think the time hurt Stephanie and Liv, but I think a couple more minutes might have gave them some more umph to it. But I don't think it was necessary, but I don't think it would have hurt that match to have a couple more minutes, but it didn't hurt it not to have it either. So,
mhm.
as a whole, I thought this weekend was a win. I was a big fan of both WrestleManias, both nights of WrestleMania. I think it set up a great future. And yeah, man, I give this weekend, I think it was a shining success.
Yeah, and I mean, we said it throughout these. Most of the matches didn't need more time; they got done when they needed. So,
Yeah,
thanks so much for doing this, man. I think this is really
no
great.
problem.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to plug your Facebook because you put like a lot of posts that I feel like can add value to
Yeah,
people that
yeah,
are interested.
just my real name, Aaron Frobel, and obviously I post some family stuff because it's my real name and everything, but at heart, I'm still a wrestler. I'm still somebody who wants to see the future of wrestling, and I do post a lot, whether it just be about wrestling I see all the time, or a pay per view or TV that I might be watching. Um, but I do try to put out as much wrestling advice as I can. I have a bunch of reels up that help why we do things and how to do them to get better reactions. So if you want to touch base on some of the wrestling stuff that I talk about. It's all open, so you don't even need to add me as a friend. I mean, if you want to, and I know you and have enough friends, I'll probably add you. If you looks like some weirdo, I'm not going to accept you because I got pictures of my kids on there. But the wrestling related pictures I open to the public, so they should be visible just by searching the name.
Yeah. Okay, great, man. Have a good night, and
You too.
I'm gonna try and get this edited like ASAP and get it up hopefully
Okay.
by tomorrow. So
All right.
I'll
Sounds
let you
good,
know
brother.
and all that stuff. And
All right, man.
yeah, take care.
All right. You too.